All right. Hebron bin Bilal right here. Come back at you, man. I've been getting some questions in my messenger, um, asking me about a few things that I've been in regard to what I've been teaching on, speaking about. Um, so what I've decided to do was go ahead and kind of create a forum where you brothers and sisters, no matter what the question might be, if it's pertaining to, I guess, the Bible or anything religious, dealing with the Bible, new or old, that I'll go in and I'll break it down for you. Now, I've had a few questions come in today, but I'm going to address one because this is kind of the where we're at right now. And before I do that, if you would like, you can always message me, send it in my messenger. You can email the question to me at Hebron122717 Once again, that would be Hebron122717 You can message me the question, email me the question, or even visit my website, my email at the remnant of the house of Yisrael. Yisrael, that's Yisrael at gmail.com. Or even go on the page, man, and leave your question there. The question that was asked to me by my brother Tony, actually today, me and him had a detailed conversation about the things we have been discussing. And it's a very simplistic question, but one that's always asked because this is always the programming that most people will go to. That he asked me, is it stated in the book or in the Bible that we no longer have to abide by the old law? So what I'm going to do is go ahead and take this next few minutes to go ahead and answer that question. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up both sides of the argument. Once again, I've dealt with this before to nausea. And once again, my question in regard to dealing with that forever thing, nobody's taking me up on that. Nobody's answered that for me yet. So I'm still waiting for somebody to answer that for me. So right now what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut into a lot of the rigmarole that would occur generally with this particular thing, because it'll be a huge back and forth. It'll just be both sides quoting passages. Well, why it say this here? Why it say that there? So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to set up both sides of the argument. The against the law scriptures that's in the new text and the pro-law scriptures that's in the new text. And I'm going to let them both speak for themselves and let them contradict each other, because you can't have these without these. And I can't sit and say that the law has been done away with if I got a bunch of passages over here telling me to keep the law. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to read the passages, not an exhaustive list, mind you, just the ones that are generally used. Remember, because I used to be a Christian. So these are the ones that we generally would use to run people away from the law. So against the law. Let's do the passages that are against the law first, to get a clear understanding of what are utilized to tell people we no longer have to keep the law. Okay, Romans chapter 7 and 4. And this is just a portion of the passage. For you are not under the law, but under grace. You are not under the law, but under grace. Romans 7 and 4. Now you can go back and check all these passages if you like. I'm giving them to you, so you can go back and look at them if you choose. Romans 7 and 4 again. Wherefore, my brethren, you are also become dead to the law by the body of the Messiah, or by the body of Christ. Romans 7 and 4. Galatians 5 and 18. But if you be led of the Spirit, you are not under the law. Galatians 5 and 18. Colossians 2 and 14. Colossians 2 and 14. Blotting out the handwriting of ordinances that was against us, which was contrary to us, and took it out of the way, nailing it to the cross, or to the stake, which I like to say. Colossians 12 and 14, talking about the law. Okay, let's do two more. Romans 10 and 4. For the Messiah or Christ is the end of the law, for righteousness to everyone that believeth. For Messiah or Christ is the end of the law, for righteousness to everyone that believes. Galatians 5:2-4. Galatians 5:2-4 says, Behold, I, Paul, say unto you, that if you be circumcised, Christ, or Messiah, which I would like to call it, Messiah shall profit you nothing. For I testify against to you, to every man that is circumcised, that he is a debtor to do the whole law. Christ is become of no effect unto you, whosoever you are justified by the law, you are fallen from grace. I love that particular one because that is like the number one go-to for majority of Christians. They jump straight to Galatians. A lot of them do the Colossians thing, but most of them go to Galatians. So these are some that we line up. So get your chalkboard, write them down. On one side, this is anti-law, against the law. Now, these are some passages you will find in the New Testament that are pro-law, Romans 7:6-7. Romans 7:6-7. But now we are delivered from the law, that being dead wherein we were held, that we should serve in the newness of the Spirit and not in the oldness of the letter. What shall we say then? Is the law sin? God forbid. Nay, I have not known sin but by the law. For I had not known lust except the law had said, you will not covet. That's pro-law. How do I say that's pro-law? You go down here to the bottom, and once again, what Paul says. What shall I say then? Is the law sin? Because a lot of you say if you keep the law, you're sinning. God forbid. No. Nay. I had not known sin but by the law. For I had not known lust except the law has said, you will not covet. Galatians 3:24-25. Galatians 3:24-25. Wherefore the law was our schoolmaster to bring us unto Christ, that we might be justified by faith. But after that faith is come, we are no longer under a schoolmaster. But remember, this is pro. I would use that as a pro, and I'll get into that later why I would use it as a pro. Romans 2:13. These are all for the law. For not the hearers of the law are just before God, but the doers of the law shall be justified. Let me read that again. For not the hearers of the law are just before God, but the doers of the law shall be justified. The doers of the law shall be justified, meaning whoever keeps the law shall be saved. So that's one that's for the law. Romans 3:31. Romans 3:31. Do we then make void the law through faith? God forbid. Yea, we establish the law. We establish the law. Now let's get it understood right here. Please don't go into this whole thing that, oh, he's talking about the law of Christ. There's no, please. I'll get into that later, but don't do that. Don't do that. 1 John 3:4. 1 John 3:4. Whosoever committeth sin transgresses also the law. For sin is transgression of the law. Now make sure you put a pin in that one. Hold on to that one, because that's a powerful one. 1 John 3:4. Whosoever committeth sin transgresses also the law. For sin is the transgression of the law. 1 Timothy 1:7. 1 Timothy 1:7-10. We'll go to that. 1 Timothy 1:7-10. Desiring to be teachers of the law. Desiring to be teachers of the law. Understand neither what they say nor what they affirm. But we know that the law is good. We know that the law is good. Now remember, this is 1 Timothy chapter 1, 7 through 10. Desires to be teachers of the law, understanding neither what they say or what they affirm. But we know that the law is good if a man use it lawfully. Knowing this, that the law is not made for the righteous man, but for the lawless and disobedient, for the ungodly and for the sinners, for the unholy and profane, for the murderers of fathers and mothers, for the murderers of fathers, murderers of mothers, and manslayers, for whoremongers, for them that defile themselves with mankind, for men stealers, for liars, for prejudiced persons, and if there be any other thing that is contrary to sound doctrine, according to the glorious gospel of the blessed God, which commit me to my trust. Commit me to my trust. Okay. Now, I just gave you a few passages. So here's the problem. If you've written these down on your blackboard, and you got your little pencil and paper and little tablet, and you've written all these passages down, you're looking and you're saying, well, dang, hold up. Over here is saying that we had to keep the law, and over here we're saying that we don't have to keep the law. See, this is how I studied. When I was on my journey to try to find the truth in the matter, this is how I studied. I wrote about it in a book that I wrote, and I'll call Incredulous the 4 questions, because I asked myself 4 questions when I was a Christian to find out about the law. So the questions, I just read those particular passages. So you have some passages saying, nah, you don't keep the law, homie. But then over here, you got them saying, yeah, you keep the law, dummy. So which one do we go with? Because one can't outweigh the other. So we have to have something to tip the scales, because we can't take these and sweep them under the rug and say, oh, no, don't look at these. And this goes for you Christians. You can't take these ones that clearly tell you to keep the law and say, oh, he's talking about the law of Christ. That's not what he's talking about. That's not what they said in 1 John. 1 John said, if you transgress the law, if you commit sin, you transgress the law. You're a sinner. So I'm not going to make one outweigh the other. So here, when I studied, I dug deep into the scriptures and I tried to find out exactly which one was right and which one was wrong, because it seemed like over here, it was clear that he was saying, man, nah, we don't keep the law. But then you turn around and the same dude who's writing this stuff is turning around here and saying, no, you keep the law. No, we establish the law. We keep the law. The law is a schoolmaster, and the schoolmaster, it guides you to, righteousness. It guides you to. My cousin Olivia made a video, and she said in her video about when she used to read the Old Testament, is she was in a dark place when she used to read the Old Testament, and it was like just full of conviction and this and this. That's what it's supposed to do. That's what the law is supposed to do. It's supposed to convict you of wrongdoing and clearly get you to understand, man, I've been living a messed up lifestyle, because this is what it did to me. When I went and I started studying 613, I started realizing how far away from being righteous I was. I said, man, I'm doing all kind of stuff. And I couldn't fix myself in one day. It took years, and I still am a work in progress, because some things I still kind of juggle and wrestle with. But understanding that's why they said that the law is a schoolmaster. It's supposed to get you to see, as a schoolmaster, a disciplinarian, a guide, educate you and get you to see just how much you needed the Messiah. Or you needed redemption. So understanding, once again, there has to be a balance, because I just read a bunch of passages that said, no, you don't have to keep the law. Then I read a bunch that said yes. So here's what I did. I got in that thing and I dug. So one of the things that truly convinced me and showed me was, okay, it's so many instances when you read in certain places after the death, burial, and resurrection, because that was the first thing I was challenged with, because a lot of people said, okay, the law wasn't done away with until after the death, burial, and resurrection. Then that's when that transition occurred. While some said that he was teaching against the law while he was here. And I couldn't jive with that because I never could clearly see that in the text. So I went with the second opinion. See, I'm always going to give you both opinions. I'm not just going to give you my opinion and say, go with this. I'm going to lay both arguments out for you and let you choose for yourself. But I'm going to give you, how I came to my conclusion. So I went and I started studying the book of Acts. What were the disciples doing after he departed? Because if indeed it was nailed to the cross after he left, you would have seen this immediate transition with the disciples, and you didn't see that. You actually seen them going into the synagogues on the Sabbath. You seen them going in the debate. Now, you got a lot of people saying, well, nah, they was just going in there to debate and try to convert people and this and this and this. Okay, I left that alone. So then one day I stumbled across something. And I said, man, wow. So I went and asked the chaplain. I said, hey, listen, Acts chapter 15. Acts chapter 15. If you got a book, turn your book to Acts chapter 15. The whole chapter. And I said, what was going on in Acts chapter 15? Because you have a particular segment in Acts chapter 15 where this guy named James, who I had to study and find out and realize that this was Yeshua or Jesus' brother, who was the elder over all the church, the congregation leaders at that time, that he was basically the shot caller. He made the final call. He made the final call actually on what to do with the Gentile converts. So if you look at Acts 15, I'm going to go at this point and then I'm going to bring it back. Because once again, we have these things on the scale. We have passages saying, don't keep the law, do keep the law. Don't keep the law, do keep the law. So I had to dig in here and see if these people were keeping the law and were they teaching other people to do the same. So I've used this 1,000 times, and I've asked people to explain it to me 1,000 times, just like the forever thing. It's never explained. So I went and I did my own research. I had two different takes on it. I had one pastor saying, well, oh, no, he was telling them at this particular point that they didn't have to do these things anymore, which made no sense, because if you read it, you can clearly see he told them to do it. But they said, no, you don't have to do that anymore, which makes no sense because he told them to do it. And we'll get to that in a second. Then I had another pastor that I read up on it and talked to who had went in and said, yeah, they told them to do these particular things, but they didn't have to do the overall things because we are only underneath the moral commandments, which makes no sense because these things that I'm getting ready to read to you have nothing to do with morality. So these are 4 commandments directly out the Old Testament. So this is what I'm going to say to you. If indeed, because there's a reason that they kept saying, no, you do not have to keep the law. If truly those writings meant that you did not have to keep the law, this book once again contradicts itself. Because right in the New Testament, in Acts 15, we see the new church fathers, the new founding church fathers, or the apostles, the disciples of Yeshua, sitting down, having a conversation, and then I'm going to go in detail, because I'm going to make 2 videos about this, but I'm going to go in detail and break it all the way down about Acts 15, and you can go research and look it up, and I'm going to be directly on point. Right here in 20 and 21, Acts 15, 20, and 21, it says, but they were to write. Now, let me go up to 19. It says, this is James talking. Wherefore, my sentence, because I say James is a shot caller, so he get the final call. Wherefore, my sentence, which is once again a Mosaic commandment, I could take you that later. Wherefore, my sentence is that we trouble not them which were from amongst the Gentiles. These are people who were not Israelites who converted into the Hebrew culture. From amongst the Gentiles are turned to God. But that we write unto them. This is where you get all these letters that were written, Galatians, Colossians, all these different letters, when they started writing them, this is where this would have originated. The epistles would have started at this particular time. At this particular time when he said, we write to them and send these letters out to these different places. Galatia, this is why Paul was so adamant in saying, man, somebody bewitched you and put you back under the law. And I'll get into all that. But I don't want to lose you, because a lot of you are really, really, really layman, meaning you really don't understand. So I just want to do this part first, and then I'll get into a more complex breakdown of this on the next video. But that we write unto them, the Gentile converts, these different churches or congregations, that they abstain from pollutants of idols. We just did that commandment. We just did that commandment. That would be in Exodus 34. Exodus 34. That they abstain from pollutants of idols, that they abstain from fornication, that they abstain from things strangled, and that they refrain from drinking and eating blood. Those are 4 commandments directly out of the Old Testament. 4. You can't find those. Jesus never preached those commandments. Before somebody say, well, Jesus was promoting those. No, he wasn't. Stay away from things sacrificed to idols. Don't eat meat that sacrificed to idols. Exodus 34 and 15, out of the Mosaic command. Has nothing to do with morality. You can also find that in 1 Corinthians. Do not drink blood or eat blood. Leviticus 7, 26 and 27. Leviticus 7, 26 and 27. So these are 2 right off the top. Right off the top. These are 2 that has nothing to do with the moral code of the Mosaic commandment. These are 2. This is how I came to my conclusion that stuff that they were saying, and it made me have to dig deeper and learn more. But I'm going to stop right here. I'm going to upload this one, get this one to you, and then I'm going to get into wrapping this up.